Wrapped in a blanket and not showing his face, this is how everyone saw 25-year-old Rudy Farias for the first time since he was reported missing 8 years ago.
It's grabbing the world's attention, and it's leaving everyone with some more questions than answers.
Rudy vanished in March of 2015. His family never had any clue of what happened to him.
Rudy was found unresponsive. He had some kind of wounds on his feet and on his hands.
Rudy's mother and Rudy himself gave fictitious names while interacting with various patrol officers.
When he first went missing, he didn't report it to the police, and they're trying to say that he might have done some crimes, which he didn't, and now they want to arrest me because they said I was hiding him.
The world thought you were missing for 8 years. Where were you? Where have you been?
Just at home.
What happened those 8 years and a mysterious relationship between the now 25-year-old and his mother.
I ain't never in my life heard of a mother doing to a child what this woman did. It's awful what took place in the house. That was the house of hell. He has lived a horrific 8 years, and I want to see that mother pay for the crime she committed against her son.
Everything's coming out to the light because I knew that she's been lying all this time.
Rudy Farias, as well as to her mother. You can tell that this is a very, very testy area I'm at right now because of what just took place a few minutes ago.
I took the family so many years. Okay, it hurt me, but I hurt from you. He's just a kid.
He knows no better.
Okay.
In all these years, he thought nobody cared. We care.
She need to go to jail today.
Right now. Right now.
Houston Police Department is disputing allegations about what happened in the 8 years since Rudy Farias was reported missing.
I'm trained to listen for statements that can help me get charges or move forward with the case. There was no statements made.
Are you saying that the activist was lying?
Basically, what we're saying is our investigation is our investigation.
They're absolute liars. That dirty, low-down damn cop was right there with me when Rudy said everything that he said. That woman should be under the jail. And I'm going to leave it at this. HPD, don't try me. Because I got it on record what he said to me. But for the sake of the victim, I'll respect that young man's dignity, as my lawyers told me to. But if you try me with your lies again, I'll let everybody hear what that young man said.
So you're doubling down with what you said yesterday.
I'm not doubling down. I'm standing straight up and standing firm, and I'm not scratching where I don't itch.
They're covering up what they knew years ago, and they didn't want to come out. It's all going to come out. You can't hide. Nothing's going to be hidden anymore. So whatever you think you can hide, good luck. It's coming out.
Today, I want to talk about the Rudy Farias case. This case is so crazy because, first of all, it's very rare for like a missing person to be found years later. So when I first heard about the case and that he was found after being missing for 8 years, I was like, oh my God, this is insane. And then the more information came out, the weirder and weirder it was getting. There are so many people speculating about what really happened, why things played out the way they did. So I'm going to do what I always do, right? Which is I'm going to give you guys the facts and then you decide what you believe. So to really understand the story, I want to go all the way back, way before Rudy was missing. So Rudy was born in 1996, but 2 years before he was born, his mom was arrested. She was arrested for disorderly conduct with a firearm, but she was able to sort of have it dismissed. The judge gave her a deferred adjudication of guilt, and that would have released her of any charges after 9 months supervision and good behavior, and the case was dismissed the next year. At this time, she already has a son. His name is Charles. And then 2 years after that, she gives birth to Rudy. Now, Rudy's father was a police officer. He was also called Rudolph Farias. So the father is Rudolph Farias III, and the Rudy that we know that was missing and found, he's Rudy IV. Rudy's mom and dad were not married, but a year after he was born, they both actually marry other people. And the weird thing is there's another Rudy IV, who is the Rudy that we know, the one who went missing. He has a half brother with the same exact name. They're both their father's sons, but they have different moms. Are you still with me? Are you still with me? So these two brothers, the Rudy that went missing and the other Rudy, are 9 months apart. It's interesting because when you look at his father's obituary, they only mention one Rudy, the fourth. This is kind of like the beginning of his daddy issues, because this is a recurring theme, which I think is important, is the daddy issues that he had, because it might let you understand what happened with his mom. So in 1997, a year after Rudy was born, his mom gets married. Now, his mom, she marries several men at the same time, okay? And this is like a thing. She had like 5 husbands, many of them overlapping over the years. In 1997, she gets married to this guy, Patrick Roja, I think is his name. The next year, while she's still married to Patrick, she marries another guy in 1998, and this guy is called John Gonzalez. So she's now married to 2 people at the same time, which is illegal. And then a year after that, she gets married to a third person, but it was like a common law thing, but it was like for over 10 years. And she even had to file for divorce from this common law marriage. But then, like a year before that, she marries someone else, and it's just like overlapping constantly. She marries another guy and then another guy. It's hard to keep track. And then she has all these different names because she takes their last name when she marries them. So she's got lots of aliases. Now, a common theme that I noticed is that a lot of these men that she would marry, they were either like police officers or in the Air Force or had some kind of position like that of authority, you could say. So during this time where she's marrying all these men and all this and all that, her 2 kids, Charles, her older son, and Rudy, they are very close. According to Rudy, he saw Charles as his father figure. He says, like, I didn't have a dad. All I had was these stepdads, and they were not like father figures to me. My older brother, Charles, was the father figure to me. He was the protector, he was the provider, and they had a really close relationship.
He would take care of me, you know, he would take me to and from school, he would pick me up, he would get me McDonald's, just play little jokes and stuff.
But then in 2011, when Rudy was just 15, he and his mom witness Charles's death. And it's this awful motorcycle accident, and it traumatizes them. And so after they lost Charles, Rudy and his mom were never the same after that.
After he had passed away, I just wasn't able to, you know, love myself or anything anymore. I wasn't able to have somebody like a father figure. You know, he was my brother, but I never had a dad. I only had stepdads. I didn't know how to grow up. I didn't know what I was doing as I was growing up. I didn't understand how to take care of myself, how to wash myself, how to make doctor's appointments, how to do anything, because I never had a chance.
So when this accident happened, Rudy and his mom were the first ones to arrive on the scene. And so they witnessed him die, essentially. And so on top of the trauma of like him losing his brother slash father figure and her losing her child, they witnessed it. The next year, in 2012, something really weird happens. Now, there was this news story, which right now I was able to find the Facebook post that talked about it and had a link to it. But when you click on that link, it's a dead link. The story's been removed. Later on, we would find out that this whole thing was a very crazy story where his mom asked him to fake an OD, that he overdosed.
Fox 26, we interviewed your mother while you were in the hospital 10 years ago in 2012. What happened? Why were you in the hospital? And I guess it was mentioned to our reporter at the time that you had cancer.
I had a tumor on my heel at one point, but that was irrelevant. Originally, I think all that had started because she wanted me to fake taking a bottle of Tylenol or like Aleve PM or something, you know, sleeping pills. And then she wanted to fake me going to the hospital, and she pretty much just forced me to go into the ER and be like, hey, you know, act like you're sick and you're overdosing. And
this was before you were missing?
Yes, sir.
And he's also now dealing with self-harm. He talks about harming himself after his brother's death, and it's not good. Another thing happens in 2012, which is that his mom marries another guy. And of course, she was already married to other people as well. And this guy, he is in the Air Force and he's stationed in Arizona. This Rudy and his mom and everyone, they're in Houston, Texas, by the way. So this guy's in Arizona, and apparently they were married by proxy. And another thing people talk about, which we'll get into later, is the catfishing that his mom would do. So I don't know if they ever like met in person or what it is, but she ends up marrying this guy by proxy. He finds out that she's married to other people and he files for an annulment. So now it's 2014 and another tragedy, as if they haven't had enough. His father, the police officer, kills himself. Okay, so his father, Rudolph III, he was a 21-year veteran of the Houston Police Department, the same police department that is covering this current case, which some people think is a connection, so I'll just, point that out. And he's 21-year veteran, and he ends up getting exposed for being part of this scam within the police department with other police officers regarding giving out tickets. They give out fake tickets. They made records of fake tickets so that they could get called in to testify and get paid overtime for that. And what ended up happening was the local news did an investigation about this, and they found out that his father was one of those officers. And for example, what he would do, they found like 2 tickets miles apart that had the same date and time and the same witnessing officer, his father, and that was impossible, right? How is he in 2 places at the same time giving 2 different tickets? So these are fake tickets. And they found out that like in the past 3 years, he had made $158,000 from overtime only, and his father loses his job. It devastates his father so much that the day he was asked to turn in his police badge, while he's still in his police uniform, he goes into the police cruiser that he drives and he shoots himself. This is in 2014, 7 months before Rudy goes missing. The only source of information about his disappearance is his mom. She's the one who reported him missing. She is the one who's giving all the information. And her story is this. She says that Rudy was walking his 2 dogs and he didn't come home that night, but then one of his dogs came home. And then the next day, the other dog came home, but still no Rudy. And so she calls the police to report him missing. She tells the police that he has anxiety and depression and he's on medication, but that he hasn't taken his medication. He has asthma, but he didn't have his inhaler on him. And, he walks with a limp because he's got this injury on his leg, and he's very wary of people, and the situation seems very dire. And so they start searching, right? There's this big search, people get involved, and they don't find him. His mom, she even goes to local media and she does an interview, and she's like, I don't want to show my face because the police have told me that this is like human trafficking maybe. And so, I don't want people to see my face because they could come after me.
He hasn't checked his Facebook. He hasn't checked email. That's why we know that he wouldn't just get up and go on his own. That's not him.
We would later find out that actually Rudy came back home a day after he was reported missing. When he came back, his mom told him, oh, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. They spent all these resources trying to look for you. And now if they find out that you were not really missing, you're going to get in so much trouble. And then also, like, you have this outstanding ticket that we just can't afford to pay. And it's been outstanding for a long time. So if they catch you, oh, you're for sure going to jail. So you need to remain missing. Okay, this is what Rudy says happened.
Just wanting to get away from home, just be free, live my own life, arguing all the time. And then we eventually just went into she locked me in there pretty much mentally. Just that she was my only parent. She was the only person I ever really had besides my brother.
Can you go into the brainwashing? What would she say to you? Would she say something would happen if you were to leave her home?
It wasn't that. It's just after I left, I started to understand that all of it's just an algorithm. It's literally all an algorithm. If you look at something black, you understand that they understand. If you look at something white, it'll confuse you when you're trying to go in a positive direction. If you look at something red, it'll remind you of love. If you look at green, it'll remind you of, like grounding people that are there for you and stuff, And
Did you feel stuck? And what was she doing exactly that kept you hidden?
it's just every time I would try to leave or, try to do things for myself, like I want to go get my own money, I want to go work a different job, I want to do this and that, they would always just come right back around to just don't do that, or it's bad, don't do that, like cops are gonna come out, they're gonna do this, they're gonna arrest you if you're driving a car without a license or this and that.
Why do you think she wanted to keep you hidden?
I don't know. It all started just because I had a speeding ticket. I went like 70 and a 55 trying to go to work. And then when that all started, it's just like I wasn't able to have a life.
When people came to the home, she would tell them to hide. Even some of his family members, they would come to the home, he would hide.
I would just have to listen to my family be happy and cheerful on the other side of a door. And I'm just like, I want my families, I just want people. I just want communication.
Did you want to just end it right there and go out and tell them that you're here and you're okay?
I just want them to know that I wanted to scream for them, but at the same time, I just couldn't because the only person I was able to trust was my mom. She told me so many things about my other family that I didn't know. I wasn't able to verify.
If he was to go out and about and he got stopped by police or he interacted with people, he didn't give them his real name, give them a fake name, fake birthday, fake everything, right? So in the meantime, while Rudy is in hiding, his mom is keeping up this facade. She has a GoFundMe and she wanted $75,000. That was the goal of the GoFundMe. I think they only made $2,000, but she was trying to make money from that. She also was going to media and publicizing the case. And then on top of that, because of the attention the case got, search organizations and private investigators offered their help pro bono for free. And my God, the things they have to say are insane. In the early days, the first private investigators, they asked her about like the dogs and the story of how he went missing, and she couldn't produce the dogs. She told them she didn't know where they were. They're like, okay, that's weird. And then they said, okay, can we go and look through the home? So she lets them come into the home and they say they noticed that some of the doors had padlocks on them. That Rudy's grandma, her mom, was also in the home, but Rudy's mom did not want them to talk to her. But there was one moment where one of the investigators was able to talk to her because Rudy's mom wasn't around. The grandma told the investigator that Rudy did not go missing walking the dogs. He got into a fight with his mom and ran away. Rudy's mom, Jenny, she did allow them to search his room. And when they searched his room, there was something weird that happened there that was a red flag. There was this letter. First of all, it was addressed to Rudy's mom, and it was like supposed to be from Rudy. And it was explaining why he left, that he ran away. That's what the letter said. But as they continued to search and look around, they noticed something. They had his homework and schoolwork and things that had his handwriting on them. And he had a very distinct handwriting. It was like print. And this letter was in cursive that when they looked in other areas of the home where his mom's handwriting was there, she wrote in cursive, and they said it was a quote, a perfect match to his mom's handwriting. So they started to think that his mom wrote this letter pretending that it was a letter from Rudy to her saying, I ran away willingly. The thing is, they say that she never gave that to authorities. She never told authorities that story. The story to authorities was he went missing walking the dogs, and then there was this whole trafficking story that she was trying to sell, which brings me to the other private investigators who she tried to sell this to. So this is a crazy story. She ends up, okay. It starts with her saying, I found a witness, a teenage girl, and I found Rudy's phone and it's like all crashed and smashed. And this teenage girl says she saw Rudy basically getting harassed by like a gang and he was kidnapped. And so based on this story, his mom decides to make a fundraiser event to help them investigate this abduction. The private investigators were at this event, and they say that the mom had this teenage girl there and had the teenage girl tell this story to everyone. But when they went to her and tried to talk to her one-on-one and asked her like some more probing questions, they said that her entire story fell apart and the teenage girl just walked away. And so they're like, oh, this is weird. So then there's this other investigator that gets involved, and her name is Brenda Paradise. Brenda Paradise says that from the beginning, something was off because she could feel like the mom was misleading them. First of all, she gave them the wrong birthday. They put it like on the flyer and then they had to correct it. So what was that about? And then when it came time for the picture, she gave them an outdated picture when Rudy was younger, which would make it harder to like identify him and find him. And when they told her like, do you have a more recent picture? She's like, no, I think this is for the best because he looks younger and so he'll get more empathy and it'll actually help with the search. But then there was this incident that happened where this area that who told them, the mom told them this is the area where he was last seen walking the dogs. They go there and what do they find? Oh my gosh, they find a backpack and an asthma inhaler and they bring it to the mom and she's like, that's his inhaler, that's his backpack. Upon further, if I can talk, upon further inspection, they find out that number one, the backpack was not Rudy's. It was like an elementary kid's backpack with his homework in there. And Rudy didn't even have asthma. So it's like, did she stage that? Did she just say that's what it is? And there was some random thing there. I don't know. Either way, they felt like this is not good. This feels really weird. So at this point, the investigator, Brenda, she's like, something is not right here. She's like, her first instinct was that the mom had Munchausen syndrome by proxy and was like making up these illnesses and things, and that maybe Rudy ran away because his mom was like so overbearing, and that maybe she was taking advantage of the situation to raise money, because that's one thing that they all noticed was that she was all about the donations and help and donate and help me and help me. So that that investigator, Brenda Paradise, she says she ends up confronting the mom with these inconsistencies, and that once the questions got really tough, the mom basically cut off contact with her and she couldn't really go anywhere with that. She went to authorities, she told them this is the deal, and they were like, yeah, we think it's really weird, but really, like, there's really nothing we can do. There's no like hard evidence. And that was that. And then there was another investigator, and this investigator, he decided to offer his help. And Rudy's mom tells him this crazy story where she's like, I have been contacted by a woman in Mexico who says she has Rudy hostage. Like, this is like some human trafficking thing. And so this private investigator, he actually contacts that woman that the mom told him about. And the woman says, I told Janny I did not want to be involved in her scam. So he's like, what? Oh, okay. So she's totally scamming. Again, same deal where they tell authorities something isn't right and they just like are like, I'm not involved, because they thought that he ran away on purpose and didn't want to be found because his mom was like crazy. So they're like, you know what, he's an adult. Maybe maybe it's better if we just leave him alone. And so that was the situation for the longest time. But it wasn't just the private investigators who thought something was off. It was actually the family members themselves, like his mom's sisters and grandmother and his cousins.
It's just we've always, in our hearts, knew that he wasn't really missing.
His cousin, Cassandra Lopez, says she called 911 in 2018 after family members saw Farias at his mother's home. She says their grandmother told her she spoke with Rudy often.
And how did those conversations go?
She would just say, I saw Rudy, he came to check on me, and, we just said hello and have their little conversation. She never went into detail, but she would say she saw him.
There were actually lots of sightings of Rudy over the years, but again, nothing came of it. It was now 2020 and something happened. The grandmother, remember how I told you the grandmother lived with Rudy and his mom? Rudy's mom would tell people that the grandmother had Alzheimer's and dementia, and she just would say things that didn't make sense. While the grandma was telling people no, Rudy's here. He takes care of me. He helps around the house. He's here. In 2020, Rudy's grandmother is no longer living with Rudy and his mom. She's actually living with his aunt. Rudy's mom decides she is going to file to get official guardianship of her mom, which would have to force the mom to come back and stay with her. Well, Rudy's aunt, her name is Sylvia. Sylvia, she files an opposing petition. She's like, no, she should not be the guardian because she has deplorable living conditions. And that's why my mom is living with me now and she should remain with me. And what are those living conditions? She says that there was animal urine and feces everywhere and that the grandma was sleeping not on a bed but on the couch that was, quote, urine soaked, and that the last time the grandma went to the hospital she had untreated bed sores. Grandma ends up dying a couple months after this filing for guardianship before it got resolved, but she was living with her daughter Sylvia at the time. The other thing that's also going on at this time is that now it had been many years, like 5+ years, that Rudy's missing, and he's alone with his mom and they have this crazy codependent relationship. And she ends up allowing him to leave and socialize with neighbors in the area under the name Dolph. Now, keep in mind, right, that picture of him when he went missing, that was younger than what he really looked like. Now he's older, he looks different. So I guess they thought they could get away with it. And so he starts hanging around with the neighbors. And all the different neighbors, they say the same thing. They're like, first of all, we knew him as Dolph. Second of all, he was always high, like on shrooms.
He never came in my garage with a sober mind. Never.
They did not know that he was missing or that he was Rudy, the same guy. None of that. Now it's 2023, and this is when we lead up to when he gets found and everything goes crazy. So there's this incident that happens. Rudy stole his mom's car and her credit card and took the car and basically ran away. He crashes the car.
His mother's BMW, he took it and he totaled it. She told police that she didn't know who took her car, but she knew that he took her car earlier that morning around 6 or 7. It was like 7 o'clock. And he had some Band-Aids on him like he had went to the hospital and a towel wrapped over him. And he walked to his house. And then later on that day, I learned that he was supposed to be missing.
He ends up walking around looking for something familiar. He finds this familiar neighborhood that he knows where there's a church there, and he decides, I'm going to sleep in front of this church. Well, a good Samaritan notices this man looking bruised and injured, bloody, like crunched up, and sleeping in front of this church. So she calls 911. She calls 911. When the first responders and officers get there and they search him, they find his mom's credit card. They start making the connection. This is the woman who's been saying her son's missing. Is this the missing son? They end up calling his mom. His mom comes there and they think, right, the police think that they're reuniting them, that he's been missing for 8 years and who knows what happened to him, but now he's sleeping in front of this church all fucked up. And this beautiful, like, reuniting moment with him and his mom. And they say, hey, do you want an ambulance? Like, we need to transport you to the hospital. He declines, Rudy declines the ambulance and ends up being given to his mom. And now he's back with his mom and they're together. Everyone who hears about this is happy because they're like, oh my God, this missing kid, he's been missing for 8 years. He's now been found and reunited with his mom. And oh my gosh, this is amazing, except it's not. No, it's not. So Rudy's mom, right, true to form, she is going with the story. So she comes up with this story of how he is traumatized, nonverbal, and recovering, and we don't know what happened to him. So she ends up getting calls from reporters, and she releases some statements and pictures. Rudy's mom says, we want to thank the media and the public for all their support. My son, Rudy Farias IV, was found on Thursday, June 29th, after having been missing for 8 years. Currently, we do not have any information on Rudy's case. What we do know is at the time of his recovery, a good Samaritan located him unresponsive and immediately called police and 911. My son, Rudy, is receiving the care he needs to overcome his trauma, but at this time, he is nonverbal and not able to communicate with us. We are asking for privacy Cassie during this difficult time, and we'll share more details as Rudy continues to heal. So she tells them like he's wearing the necklace. This his brother's necklace, the one who passed away. And every time we talk to him or anyone tries to talk to him, he's like squeezing and rubbing the necklace. And the thing is that he's barely talking. And then if he does talk for a little bit, he like goes into the fetal position right after. And if you try to like hug him or touch him, he's like flinching. And he doesn't even know who he is. She's like, he thinks his name is Julio Torres and that he's 14 years old. And the doctors are saying, don't correct him. Just go with it right now until we can start to like treat him and he heals and goes through recovery. Like he's in really bad shape, but hopefully he'll be okay. She's like, he has cuts and soft tissue tumors and small holes and openings on the swelling on the soles of his feet with bruising, old and new cuts and scrapes and dry blood on his head and hair. And she's like, God only knows what he went through for the past 8 years. God only knows. Those pictures that she posted, according to her sisters, they're like, those are from 2012. Remember when I told you guys there's like this weird article and incident in 2012 where he faked an OD and he was like hospitalized? Apparently the pictures that she gave the media in 2023 were actually the pictures from 2012, according to the sisters, allegedly. And then things started not adding up. First was the credit card. His mom's credit card was opened 2 years ago from when he was found, but he was missing for 8 years, hadn't seen his mom for 8 years. How do you get your mom's credit card from 2 years ago if you haven't seen her in 8 years? On top of that, what made it worse was neighbors. They started talking to media and they're like, we've been seeing this guy at the home with his mom for years.
Neighbors tell me Farias has been living with his mother this entire time.
He lives down here with his mom. He goes to work with her like around 6 p.m. to like maybe 7 or 8 in the morning. And he just been freely walking down the street.
A neighbor here says he has known Rudy since November and that they hang out together.
We would sit and talk about jobs. I'm like, my job higher and I can get you on. He like, nah, I'm good. He like, I like my job. I get paid more and I'm getting paid on the table.
The only thing he said to me was he didn't want to be at home because his mom got on his nerves.
And it just kept getting crazier. You had neighbors being like, she tried to bribe me to lie.
The neighbors also say she offered to pay them.
She wanted us to keep quiet. But I told her, before I walked off, I told her one thing I'm not supposed to do is lie about something. She offered to pay somebody $200 to lie and say that was her nephew. And I said I wasn't going to lie. They showed me a picture. I'm going to say who it is. And I walked off.
And then you had neighbors like filming the mom, and the mom's talking about like she thinks she's going to get arrested, like she's freaking out.
When he first went missing, he didn't report it to the police. And they're trying to say that he might have done some crimes, which he didn't. And now they want to arrest me because they said I was hiding him.
It gets to the point where police are like, we want to question the mom and the son to see what's going on because of all this new information. Mom, she is freaked out. So she ends up contacting this guy. His name is Cornell X, and he's becoming a big part of this case. Cornell X is this activist in the area, and he kind of specializes, I guess you would say, with like controversial cases with police. Like he's known to help people if they want to like turn themselves in, he'll go with them. And so the mom felt like having Cornell X with her during her interview with police would help. So this meeting takes place with Cornell and other activists, police officers, investigators, Rudy, and Rudy's mom. And then after this interview, there's this footage of Cornell X like escorting Rudy, who's wrapped in like this blanket, into his car. And there's all this drama that goes on. Family members are upset, and it seems like he's going back with his mom. And the whole thing is like really weird. And then Cornell does this interview right after, and it is shocking.
Let me first apologize for my appearance. I received an emergency phone call to get over here, and I spent about an hour and 20 minutes one-on-one with Rudy, I heard horrific things from that young man. I couldn't hold back the tears because of the things he was saying to us, the detective and myself. No child should ever be treated like that by your own mother. This young man said that when he initially ran away, he came back 2 days later, and she told him that he had to hide, that he was going to get in trouble. He kept saying, I don't want her to go to prison. I don't want her to get in trouble. I don't want her to go to jail. We asked him, why did you run away? And he said he just got tired of her not respecting his boundaries. And his exact word was, I was tired of living like a slave. She would take him to work with her, and he would do the required work she was supposed to do. What troubled him the most was her crossing his personal space boundaries. He said that she would make him sleep in the bed with her. And he said that she made him play daddy, that he didn't like getting in the bed with her, that he would try to sneak out of the bed and sometime hide under the bed, but she told him he had to be her husband. That's a damn shame, man. Said she was the one providing drugs to him for years, hallucination drugs, mushrooms, etc. And that the reason why he was left, he was just tired of her crossing his boundaries. When he would shower, she would come and pull the shower curtain back and stare at him, and then she would make him bathe her with the soap. And he ran away this time because he was tired. I ain't never in my life heard of a mother doing to a child what this woman did.
What was her response to those allegations?
She hadn't even heard them because we had to remove her from the room. When she was in the room, he wouldn't say nothing. And he asked. He said, can I speak with Mr. X by myself? And the detective was like, well, can one of us stay in the room? And he was like, okay, but I'll talk to him. When he first came here, he was holding on to her. He wouldn't talk to them. He wouldn't say one word to anybody. But the minute he got alone by himself, he slowly calmed down, and he slowly began to talk very coherently and specific details. She was drugging the hell out this kid, and she convinced him that he was in trouble for initially running away, and that law enforcement wanted to arrest him and put him in jail for running away. That young man's body have scars all over it, slice wounds from here up, from his forearm to his wrist. He said that she often locked him in the room, that she would give him drugs and lock him in the room. It ain't no way in hell that woman shouldn't be locked up immediately. I couldn't go back in the presence at that point. The police felt it was just best that she and I not speak again because I was bitter. And then she goes back in there and tries to tell him, and she don't even know that was recorded. Tell him that you made it all up, that it was just a lie.
She was sexually abused.
She would ask him to play daddy. She told him that he had to be the husband. She would force him to sleep in the bed with her. He was forced to sleep at times in the beds with no clothes on. But I don't want to talk about the kissing and all of that stuff. And if your mother tongue kissing you in the bed with her naked, what the hell is that? I mean, damn, do we have to go that far? This is sick.
What else do you
This ain't normal. This is sick. Based on what that young man said to me in front of the detective, I don't see why she's not in handcuffs right now.
Rudy's mom was planning on talking to media after she had this meeting with police where it seemed like she got no repercussions or anything, and they just kind of let them go together. She was going to say her piece, but when Cornell came out and did that interview where he like said the mom's a monster and she did all these horrible things, they actually got footage of her like coming and then turning around like and speeding off and changing her mind, and she didn't want to talk to media anymore. Now there's like all this public outcry because they're like, why did the police let him go with his mom if his mom was doing this to him, and oh my god, this is crazy. So the police end up doing a press conference, and during this press conference they kind of contradict what Cornell X said.
Now, based on Rudy's interview, there were no reports of sexual abuse reported. If there is a disclosure made, we will continue to investigate.
I interviewed him, and no, there was no. I'm trained to listen for probable cause. I'm trained to listen for statements that can help me get charges or move forward with a case. And no, there was no statements made.
The investigation is still going on, Courtney, and I'm not gonna say if he's a victim or not. He's a grown man. 20. Listen to what I'm saying. If you want me to answer you. No, he was an adult, 17. Hold up, okay. Not confrontational. I respect what everybody does, okay. But 17 years old, that's an adult in the state of Texas, okay? We're going to investigate it. The integrity is going to stay in place. We're going to treat him the same as any other person that comes through.
No charges were brought against the mom, even though technically it's a misdemeanor for her to give like false names and false report. But they said they brought the information to the DA and the DA declined to charge the mom. Now it's even more confusing and shocking because it's like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is when all the conspiracy theories start coming out where people are saying, she has like all these connections with law enforcement, all these people that she knew. She's very well connected. Like they're protecting her. They're covering for her. And then other people are like, no, they're not covering for her. They're covering themselves because they were told that he was there and they had all these opportunities to like figure this out, but they didn't. They dropped the ball. So now they're trying to make it seem like it's not that big of a deal. And it all escalates because once the police come out and contradict what Cornell X said, he comes out and he does another press conference, this time in front of Rudy's house with other people, including some of Rudy's family members, and he is pissed.
That man heard everything that I heard. I begged the detective, don't allow Rudy to go home with this woman. How in the hell can you allow that boy to leave with that woman? And the detective said to me, because he is an adult, there's not a lot we can do about it. That young boy told us how she would give him drugs, mushrooms as he called them. That young boy talked about how the drugs would cause him to hallucinate. When the question was asked, was there a sexual relationship? The sergeant lied in his response. That dirty, low-down damn cop was right there with me when Rudy said everything that he said. So what are you suggesting? Because he was of age, he gave consent? Is that what you're trying to suggest? That boy wasn't involved in no scheme. That woman a straight-up monster. Everyone should be praying for Rudy and should be outraged with how this is being handled. That woman should be under the jail. And I'm going to leave it at this. HPD, don't try me, because I got it on record what he said to me. But for the sake of the victim, I'll respect that young man's dignity, as my lawyers told me to. But if you try me with your lies again, I'll let everybody hear what that young man said.
Why do you think HPD is lying?
I think HPD is embarrassed. In fact, they wasn't going to even question Rudy after the mother told them he's nonverbal. And so I pulled up a chair and I sat down next to him, and he was holding his mother's leg and crouched all over. And she had covered him up with a blanket. And I said, little brother, can you look at me? And he raised his head up and he looked. He said, I know you. I say, you do? He said, I know you. You Mr. X. I said, wow, little brother, you speaking now? I said, well, young man, can I shake your hand? He put his hand out. He's shaking like this, like a leaf blowing in the wind. And he looked at his mama. Then she said, no, he gonna have a panic attack. No, he gonna have a breakdown. And I said, well, wait a minute. At first, he was nonverbal, but he talking right now. I said, give him a chance. I said, okay, talk to the detective. I got up to walk out. Rudy grabbed my hand and said, no, I want him to stay. So for all of you people who putting it out there that I put myself into this case, his mama called me and Rudy demanded that I stay. And we asked the mother to leave. She didn't want to leave. We said, ma'am, it's important that you leave. So she said, okay. She left. We started talking to him. She came back 3 minutes later, bamming on the door. We opened the door. She said, is he having a panic attack? We said, no. He's fine. Look at him.
Rudy's family members, they come out and they say, like the cousin, she said that the grandma told us that this was in fact going on.
Prior to Rudy's disappearance, his so-called disappearance, his mother had been seen by my late grandma of causing abuse to Rudy, sexually, physically, mentally. This did not just start when Janie reported Rudy missing.
The family, they had really bad things to say about the mom. They're like, she is a scammer, she's manipulative, she's a liar. They're like, she is a full-on catfish. Like, she has crazy like catfish. Like, when I looked into it, I was like, damn, you know those catfish that, no, it's not just like one catfish account, but they do like a catfish world where they have like different fake profiles of friends of this supposed fake person that they're pretending to be, so that they can like and comment and interact with them, and it's like insane. She was like one of those. The family were saying that it's all about money, that she's greedy and she will manipulate and do whatever she has to do and hurt whoever she has to hurt for money. And so she did this before with all these husbands and marrying all these people. And she did it with Rudy to get these donations. And she had this GoFundMe, and she was using the money to like go on vacation. And then GoFundMe comes out and they're like, we're banning her. When the shit hit the fan and his mom was exposed, she like left in the middle of the night. And then Rudy, he ended up staying with his mom's friend. Then when he was there, his aunt came to try to give him something and see him, and she hadn't seen him in like 8 years, right? And that didn't go well, and there's like footage of all the drama that happened.
Get away from my house! Get away from my house!
Things did not start cordially this afternoon when the aunt of Rudy Farias showed up to this home in East Houston.
I want to press charges. She's not here. Where's the warrant for Janie Sanchez? Then come to my house when you got a warrant.
Rudy is staying with a friend of his mother's, but when Pauline showed up at the house, the woman inside called 911. Refused to let her in the door.
Rudy's in there, but she's not willing to speak of anybody at this time.
But later on, Sanchez's son was first allowed inside to see his cousin, and then Sanchez herself was eventually allowed to see him too.
He made the statement that he doesn't want to see his mom. He doesn't want to go back to his mom. He's skinny, but he's okay. We hugged until I finally let go. He basically didn't tell me verbally, but he looked at me in the eye and then he shed his tears and he cried with me and he cried about it. I said, what you told Cornell, was it the same? You know, he said, yeah.
And then there was the bombshell interview where Rudy himself spoke out. But I'll show you some like clips of the interview.
Tell us about what it was like living there. Were you allowed to leave the room? Was she holding you there against your will?
She never like locked me in or, you know, like handcuffed me or anything like that. You know, I had free will to leave. It just felt like brainwashing, honestly. She would manipulate me into saying like, oh, you're gonna get arrested because you have a speeding ticket or something. So when I lost my brother, I didn't have anybody to teach me how to live, you know, how to have confidence or trust in myself or anything, you know. So I just depended on my mom all my life.
What had you been doing for those 8 years?
Just trying to study the best I can online. We just need to spread more positivity because all of it, everything around us, it's an algorithm that they control through the social media and through the colors. If you see something white, like a white wall or a white pillowcase or a white car driving around the place, you know, you're just trying to have a positive thought, and then you'll look at something white and get sidetracked and you'll get distracted about stuff and things. Then you'll find stuff like a pink wall or something, or pink whatever, and then just be reminded of, you know, somebody trying to help you, prosperity, you know, just somebody loving people. Red, people confuse that for anger or hate, and it's only anger or hate, these type of things, if you look at it that way, you know. It felt like Stockholm Syndrome, honestly. Like, just held against my will mentally, not physically. Constantly, like, she was bombarding me with negative thought.
Do you think your mom took advantage of you?
Heavily. It's like I lived in prison. It's like I lived in a jail my whole life. I just wanted to just love somebody, you know, have somebody else that would actually love me. If all I do is work 12-hour shifts 7 days a week and I get $60, I don't understand how that's fair.
Did you ever ask Mom, why are we pretending that I'm missing?
And that's the thing, when it comes to the real small details like that, I just can't, I don't remember.
Were you questioning your mom? Like, Mom, why am I doing this?
Yeah, I would always ask her stuff like, why can't we just go to the police station? Why can't I just get a lawyer? Why can't I just do that? And she's like, oh, you can't get a lawyer because it's too much money. Everything was always just money, 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 money. It's a constantly money. I don't know, I used to have to sleep in her bed sometimes. I don't remember why, just like next to her. It wouldn't be anything sexual or anything like that. That's where I said the media, they like to twist my words and confuse things. I never said anything bad about her in that regard. Boundaries she would push or make me uncomfortable, and I would say stop, and she'd be like, well, why? Why? What did I do? I didn't do anything wrong, you know, and then I would just be like, okay.
Do you want to talk to her?
No, not really. I don't want any contact with her at all. Seems like every time she comes around me, it just fuels negativity into me. Like she's just downloading it into my brain over and over, and I don't like it.
Why do you think she did that?
It's because maybe a lot of both of our problems stemmed from my brother passing away. He was like the father figure, you know, he's a provider. He took care of the family, you know, me and my mom.
Is there anything that you want people to know?
Just something inside of my brain kept going back to her, like she was my life support in a sense, you know, I needed her.
I'm sure you've heard or seen what Quanell told the media.
Specifically,
some of the sexual things.
See, that's what I'm saying. The twisting. No, I didn't say anything like intercourse or this and that.
But
Like,
no, I don't necessarily think he didn't get into specifics like that either. But he did mention that your mom wanted you to play the role of husband in the house.
yeah, pretty much. It basically felt like that.
Did she ever force? You don't have to go into detail,
No,
but
she didn't force herself on me or anything. Like it wouldn't be anything like I would have to go get a rape kit. Just stuff that really made me uncomfortable, and I didn't have any references or other people to bounce off of to understand that, like, if it's a healthy thing that she does or not.
Would you say that you and your mom have a normal son-mother relationship?
Not after all of that. Not after everything she did.
Do you think there's something that police should know about?
That there's a lot of corruption. And it's literally through the colors. Literally, it's a corruption of the mind. It's through nanobots and like the flu vaccines and everything. The computers and the people we talk to, it's all connected in a sense.
Would you call yourself a victim?
Yes, heavily.
Have you gotten an attorney?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Lawyer? No?
No, sir. Not that I'm aware of.
Have you talked to Quanell since you saw him at the hotel?
No.
No?
No, sir.
Anything that we didn't ask that you want to make sure people know about?
All I can say is just spread positivity and love.
Well,
Spread wildflower, not wildfire, because we need more color. We don't need any more hatred or burning things down.
First of all, it's really sad. Okay. It just seemed like he was so sheltered and in this like crazy bubble with his mom for so long that even if he was to say he doesn't believe he was SA'd, he also can say that he doesn't know what rises to the level of that. Like SA doesn't actually just mean R word. There are levels of that. And if he is saying that he felt very uncomfortable and that his boundaries were crossed with the things his mom did and have him in the bed and all this, and that he would cave and do things he wasn't comfortable with because he was people pleasing, right? And he has this codependency power dynamic with his mom, and she's like the only person he's in contact with, and she's telling him he has to fear everyone, and they only have each other, and now she's asking him for this thing. I'm not an expert, but to me, that could definitely be classified as SA. But he himself is saying, I don't think I was. I think what happened, and this is just my opinion, right, with Quanell and the police, is that he was vague about certain things. He also probably said he didn't think he was fully, R-worded or whatever, but that there were a lot of inappropriate things, and that Quanell's interpretation was, oh, that's definitely SA and inappropriate. And the officers, maybe they didn't interpret it like that because he was saying no, like he's an adult, and he was saying, no, I don't think I was. And so you could have had that, like that could be the discrepancy, not that like they're both lying, but more they interpreted it differently. At least that's my opinion. That's just my opinion. The other thing that stood out to me was that Rudy kept saying like Stockholm syndrome, which is a real thing, right? And you can have Stockholm syndrome with a stranger. This is his mom. I could very well see Stockholm Syndrome. Plus, she's making it seem like she's looking out for him, like, hey, you know, you're going to get in trouble if you leave. And so to me, I find it not hard to believe, given all the context, that this situation could have occurred, as insane as it is. Basically, where the case stands right now is that the investigation is still open. There's this other officer that came out and said, like, I know they want charges, but what he said is actually going to make it very difficult for the police to bring charges.
Mark Stevens, a former Houston police detective, says Quanell has made it nearly impossible for charges to be filed.
He got on national television and declared to the world that for the past 8 years, the alleged victim here has been on psychedelic drugs. Basically, for the past decade, he's been hallucinating. Why would you then believe him when he tells you these horrible stories about his mother?
I am so curious to see what's going to happen because the investigation is still open. And who knows if Rudy will say things to police as time goes on and, you know, he processes what's going on. Who knows? But I'm very curious to see how this unfolds. I'm very curious to know what you guys think about the whole situation. Please let me know. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.